like this, is that if you lift up your eyes above the temporal into the transcendent, and so that's what exists in the heavenly world, in the stars. If you pick an ultimate goal, if you pick the right ultimate goal, then, and anyone can do this, that's the other thing, it's democratic, it's anyone can do this, so that's the second proposition. It doesn't matter who you are, you can do this. And so I think that's a reflection of the idea of the divinity of the individual. It's like there's something about each individual that's valuable regardless of their idiosyncrasies, and so they have this potential that they can manifest. And how do you manifest it? Well, you pick the right goal. And what's the right goal? Well, it's high, it's elevated, it's above the mundane. Now what does that mean? Well, you don't really know. You don't really know. That's why it's signified by a star, and a star is something that glimmers in the night, right? So it's a source of light in the darkness. And so there's a metaphor there, obviously there's a metaphor there. And the star is the star that's the star of Hollywood, you know, the person that you emulate. That's part of it, because an ideal is, it's going to be a human ideal of some sort that you're aiming at, and so the ideal human being is the star that you're aiming at. Maybe it's something like that, if that's what you're aiming at. You might say, well, what should you aim at in life? And one answer is, well, why don't you aim at being whatever you could be that would be the best? Now, you don't know what that is exactly, because how do you know? You know, but you could think, well, that would be really good if I could have it. And then you could say, well, can I think of anything better than that? And if the answer is no, then, well, why not go for that? You know, and you might say, well, it's too ambitious, it takes too much responsibility. It's like, yeah, those are definitely problems. And one of the things that I've figured out over the years is that if you offered the person the opportunity, you know, because people say, well, life doesn't really have any ultimate meaning. It's like, yeah, okay, fine, so fine. Let's say it has an ultimate meaning, but that in order to experience that ultimate meaning, you have to take on ultimate responsibility for what you do. Well, that's a heavy price to pay to have a meaningful life, you know. And you might say, well, there's no damn way I'm going to do that. I'll just go for the, you know, pointless, I'll go for the trivial, pointless perspective, which, you know, is kind of hard on me existentially, but it frees me up. I can do whatever the hell I want moment to moment. I don't have any ultimate responsibility. And so then you think, well, that's kind of a good deal. And then but that raises this weird specter of doubt, which is, well, when you hear people talk about the ultimate futility of life, is it because life is ultimately futile, or is it because they've decided that they would just as soon not adopt the responsibility, and they use that real decision, which is to not adopt the responsibility, they rationalize that by proposing that life is ultimately meaningless. And, like, you know, I kind of buy that. I really do think that's what's going on. So, but maybe not. But it could be that if you want to have an ultimately meaningful life, that you have to adopt ultimate responsibility. Makes sense. What might that mean? Well, one thing it might mean is that, and I do think it means this, is that I think it was Alexander Pope, but I might be wrong about that, who said, nothing human is foreign to me. And that's a hell of a statement, right? Because if you think about all the things that human beings are capable of, and they're capable of some, like, if you really want to know what people are capable of, you should read about Unit 731. But I would not recommend it, because if you read it, you will never forget it, and you will be sorry that you read it. But you'll know. Anyways, to say that nothing human is foreign to you, that's a hell of a thing to say, because that means that what other people have done you could do, and that also means you need to take responsibility for that. That's no joke, you know, it's a big deal to do that in even a trivial manner. Anyway, so the idea is that you can elevate, if you elevate your viewpoint to some transcendent ethic, you want what's ultimately good, you really want that, whatever that is. You don't know, but that's what you're aiming at. Says that, well, then it says this strange thing that, well, what you want will all of a sudden come to you. Well, that's a proposition, and it's the proposition that's basically played out in the movie. It's a hypothesis. The hypothesis is the best way to orient yourself in life is to orient yourself towards the highest good that you're capable of imagining, and then aim at that, and then things will work out the best way they can for you. And I believe that's correct. My My observation of life has led me to see that that seems to be correct. So for example, you don't get something you don't aim at. That just doesn't work out, and so lots of people aim at nothing and that's what they get. So if you aim at something, you have a reasonable crack at getting it. You know, you tend to change what you're aiming at a bit along the way, because like, what do you know, you aim there, you're wrong, but you get a little closer and then you aim there and you're still wrong, you get a little closer and you aim there, and as you move towards what you're aiming at, your characterization of what to aim at becomes more and more sophisticated. And so it doesn't really matter if you're wrong to begin with, as long as you're smart enough to learn on the way, and as long as you specify a goal. So specify a vague one. I want things to be the best they could be, and I'm willing to learn what best means as I go along. Okay, so fine. And then you get what you truly need.